What's happening, folks? Welcome back to Celtic Fans TV. It is time for full-time reaction to RB Leipzig 3, Celtic 1 here in Leipzig at the Red Bull Arena. Behind us, we were there in the Celtic end tonight. Stuart, it finished 3-1. Fair to say it wasn't the result we were looking for. How do you sum that up?
Well, this was not the day that we won away. Disappointing, mate. Like, I'm gutted because when that's it, and by the way, what a buzz with the goal. Like, let's go for the positive first off. That goal was a sensational moment. But I think, to be honest, we'd ridden our luck. I think we were quite lucky to only be just one behind at that point. But I think that showed why Kyogo Furuhashi's got to be in the team, because I think it was completely selfless from him. Drags both defenders, has the awareness, plays the perfectly weighted and positioned pass. And Jota, who had a quiet and at times frustrating night, with a really good finish. I don't think we involved Jota enough. Although there was a lot of worries about the centre of the defence, and they started at 6s and 7s, and Maurice Jens couldn't find a Celtic jersey for about the first half hour, but I think they grew into it a wee bit. Greg Taylor was outstanding. Greg Taylor, I thought, was easily the best Celtic player in the pitch. Every bit of work that he did, both defensively and going forward. And there was that point where he was pressing the play up at the right sort of wing position at the corner of their box.
Half, yeah.
Aye. I think he was brilliant, but to be honest, he held his hand up at the end when he came over to the Celtic fans, but Joe Hart has to take a lot of the blame individually tonight, even though collectively I think Celtic were well beaten, if I'm honest.
Aye, I think over the course of 90 minutes, I don't think you can really argue that Leipzig were the better team and deserved their victory. I thought, the first 2 minutes they've got two chances. They've had two chances 2 minutes in, and you think this could be a long night. But then we find their feet a wee bit, and they obviously, Nkunku has a goal ruled out for offside. He thinks over Joe Hart. But then we have our best spell of the game, 23, 24, 25 minutes. We have a spate of 3 corners, one after the other. We have chances. I think a brilliant ball. We win it back in attack. He plays a brilliant ball in between the centre-halves for Kyogo. It sits up from, he strikes it. There's a good block on it. It goes for a corner. And we're building momentum. The away end was really riled up because we felt like there's something here for us. This is a good spell. Can we maybe nick a goal here? And we take the next corner from that, and it comes out to the edge of the box to Callum McGregor, and he can't control it. He doesn't control it. He loses it. Leipzig break. And some sort of fairness to McGregor, he gets back and he gets a foot in, but all he succeeds in doing is playing Nkunku through in goal, and Hart's vacated his goals. He's come out to try and meet it, and Nkunku gets there before him. And
it comes down to decision making, doesn't it, Paul? You see Callum McGregor with a poor touch, but again, the decision for Juranovic when McGregor does do the tracking back, Juranovic steps up and lets Nkunku in behind him. The decision for Joe Hart to come out and try and sort of narrow the angle, but what he actually did is he left a very small gap, to be honest. But Nkunku, who couldn't hit a barn door against Rangers last season, obviously was really on song tonight. I think naivety is the one thing that really struck me tonight, because I think in the Real Madrid game we were profligate with our chances, and then a world-class team put us to the sword in the second half. In the Shakhtar game we had enough chances to probably win a couple of Champions League games, if we're honest, especially in terms of the number that we create away. And we were a really good performance that night. Tonight wasn't a really good performance, and I think the better team won. But I think at times for Celtic, even towards the end, it's decision making, small things. So Jota goes on a good run. Rio Hatate makes a brilliant angle for the pass to be slipped through. Instead, Jota steps further towards the centre of goal and then hits a tame shot towards Blasvik. I think was the substitute keeper for them. And again, I don't think they're... The way that they manage the game in these situations is I think a lot of the play and a lot of the style of play is of Champions League level, and what we're aspiring to do is the right kind of football for this stage. But there's a naivety there that we need to get over. Another thing that I did like today is, after Callum McGregor went off, see just having a bigger body. I know Matt O'Reilly's quite tall, and by the way, his yellow card is one of the most ludicrous.
Yeah, yellow card for shielding the ball.
Aye, it's crazy. I actually thought the referee, as I say, Celtic were well beaten in the night, but I thought the referee was really, really poor the night. I thought there was no consistency about his decisions. There was about one decision, 50-50, that he gave Celtic's way in the whole game, and it was a foul by us. You know, just didn't have a good game at all. Aye, naive, mate.
See just on, I've mentioned, right, we lose the first goal just after our best spell in the first half, and then we start the second half really well. As you touched on already, it's a great goal. Kyogo does so well to stay calm. He's breaking forward. He drags the second Leipzig defender. He's got somebody over his shoulder. He drags the second Leipzig defender in. It creates a space for Jota. He's calm enough to slide a lovely ball into Jota's path for him to finish it first time across the keeper. Absolute scenes, by the way. If nothing else tonight, we got that 5 minutes of celebrating the goal and then after the goal, which is why you follow Celtic across Europe.
The pyrotechnics at the start were something as well.
But aye, it was brilliant. The whole atmosphere was brilliant, and always is when you come to places like this to see Celtic. But we get level, and then you think we're doing all right in the game. We lose a goal on the counter attack, not in the counter attack, in transition. It gets showed out for offside. I think again, second VAR decision that's gone against Leipzig. You can only assume it's the right decision. That's what VAR's there for.
By the way, that one was really confusing.
It gives us a lifeline to stay level. And Joe Hart kills us because 30 seconds later he gives the ball away and they're in on goal and it's 2-1. And from a position of, right, we've got away with that one, we're still level, we've handed Leipzig the lead on a plate. And you can't afford to do that at this level.
You're right, and I think you pointed out to me in the ground Ange Postecoglou's reaction. He was absolutely raging, and you can understand that because I've gone on this channel before and said that last season Joe Hart was our most important signing, in my opinion, despite all the quality that we brought in. Thought he was important as a culture setter. I think he's been off his game recently, and I think it's the time where we've needed him to step up. I don't know if the absence of Cameron Carter-Vickers has affected him, but to be honest, a professional and a player as experienced, a goalkeeper as experienced as Joe Hart, he shouldn't be reliant on just having his defensive lieutenant there. He should be the man that takes command. I think we saw with the goal at the weekend that the communication was poor. There was another one tonight where Welsh, who, by the way, I was really worried about Stephen Welsh coming into this game. I don't think he was bad tonight.
See, just on your point about the centre halves, I don't think either of them you can pinpoint individual goals as being their fault. But I do just have the general feeling over the course of that 90 minutes we were open. We effectively conceded 5 goals. 2 of them were ruled out for VAR, but we were open, and you were never really confident anytime Leipzig went forward that we could really deal with it efficiently. And as I say, we lost 3 goals. 2 were ruled out for VAR, but we just had that soft centre about us. And I'm not saying that's wholly down to the centre halves. I know we lost McGregor early in the game. Abelgard came on for effectively his first real appearance for Celtic. He had a few minutes at the weekend, but means nothing in the grand scheme of things. So we're a wee bit depleted in that sort of centre of defence and centre of midfield as to what full strength would be. But I just thought we had a bit of a soft centre, and the centre halves did play a part in that. I just thought we were too easy to cut open tonight.
It's not a unit. Like, that's the problem. It doesn't look like a unit. Greg Taylor individually put in a great performance, but the unit wasn't great. Juranovic, I thought, had some good moments in the other full-back position as well. But as I say, I thought he got caught for one of the goals a wee bit.
See the third goal, right? The third goal is the best goal from Leipzig's point of view, right? Because they work it really well, right? Aye. But it's Juranovic that turns over high up the pitch because he stabs a lazy ball into Hatate that's never ever getting to him. He probably shouldn't even have tried to play it into Hatate, but it's a wee bit lazy. I don't know if he's tired at that stage in the game, but again, Leipzig in transition and they punish it. Really, really good goal.
That was a brilliant counter attack.
It's Silva that finishes it off, but it's a I think it might be Forsberg that switches it out to the right back, who's made a great run, and he first times it into Silva, touch finish. Great goal for their point of view, but from our point of view, we lose it up the pitch, get punished in transition, and too many times tonight when the shoe was on the other foot and we had opportunities to break in transition, we weren't really ruthless enough. We did it once, we got level, but we had wee opportunities like that, and you've touched on one or two of them with Jota and the likes, where there's maybe half openings, but you need to be so clinical, your touches need to be so good, your decision making, your pass needs to be so good.
Wasn't he crisp?
And it wasn't for us, and it was for Leipzig.
Aye, no, I think that's the key. And for me, it comes down to, like, I'm not one of these merchants that says you shouldn't play out for the back, just launch it forward and all of that. But there's times and places, and to play the way that Celtic play, it's really brave. You need to communicate well, and you need to make sure that you're crisp in every action that you take. So if you're not sure that a pass is going to get there because of the angles that we're making and what an interception, because it's different if you play, say, the way Rangers did at Liverpool, right, where there's always going to be a spare man, there's always going to be like a defender, and not having a go. Celtic don't do that. We don't meekly roll over, sort of yellow-bellied style. We came here and we did have a go tonight. But the decision-making was wrong too many times. And I think that's something that I'm hoping when you look at Ange's team last year compared to this year, there's been a real shift forward, right? But I think you need about the same amount of improvement again for us to be viably competitive at this level, playing the way that we do, especially on the road. And tonight, as you say, there was times that, I mean, you could forgive Juranovic for being a bit tired. He did put in a power of work, but if you're not sure that pass can get there, as frustrating as it might be to the supporters, especially given that the head-to-head goal difference could be a factor in deciding who progresses for the group or who gets third place. And that's why it's really good we didn't concede a fourth, because that could have happened and there was a chance at the end as well. We could have got gubbed tonight and we didn't. So that's a positive. But I think tonight for me, unlike the first two performances where I was coming away glowing at the way that Celtic had played, and I think we must now really feel disappointed that we've only got 1 point for those two games. Tonight, I thought we were found out a wee bit, but I think the Carter-Vickers thing is a factor in that. I also think players have dropped off.
It's huge. It's huge. We know there's been a little bit of a drop-off. Bagpipes in the background there. We know there's been a little bit of a drop-off in recent weeks. We talked about that before the game. I think tonight you can see we have to make these incremental step-ups in the Champions League. We have to get to the level where we can, I said it again in the Twitter space today, can we be the team that punishes teams in transition, takes the chances, punishes mistakes? Leipzig were that tonight. We made too many mistakes. Leipzig punished them. Other thing on tonight, not related to the game, but the half-time entertainment.
That was unbelievable.
I don't know if MD at the game seen it, but
right, somebody
for the top tier had lost their glasses.
My worst nightmare, by the way. Like, see the idea of falling down a tier and then your glasses gone, right? And then there was about 10 minutes of folk trying to hoist
10 minutes
it up.
of people trying to throw it back up to the top tier. Add 2 goals. Brilliant throws, by the way.
Mate, there was a couple. There was one of them that was
with two of them,
total bad catch.
Butterfingers with 2 of them, and then the third time lucky, boom, right into the guy's hands. So, listen, I saved the day in some sense today.
I think your handling and your distribution might have been better than Joe Hart's
maybe decision making as well, you could argue. Anyway, digress on that. Context of the group tonight. We know that we've got Leipzig at Celtic Park next week.
Must win.
3-1. It's hard, obviously. It would have been better if it was 2-1, of course, because then it's a 1-goal margin. If we beat them in any way next week, you're kind of level or better in the head-to-head. Real Madrid beating Shakhtar so far tonight. It was midway through the game as we're making this video, but we've got to win next week to have any chance of progressing. And obviously, I think it still stands. If Real Madrid win the rest of their group games, if Real Madrid come here and win, and they win the rest of their group games, and we can win those 2 home games, we're still in with a shout to make the last 16. But we've got to perform better than that at Celtic Park next week. We know we've got the crowd behind us, but the performance on the pitch, individually and collectively, has to be a bit better than that.
It has to be, and you're looking now at bodies as well.
No,
because
a bit more. A lot better.
No, it needs to be considerably better, because I think as well, on the road, there's, I mean, as bad as it sounds, I don't think there is a level of expectation really with Celtic on the road. I think you know that it's going to be hard going for all of the chanting, that it might be the day that we win. But I don't know. Look, when it comes to the home game, it's a totally different scenario, because even though the Celtic crowd is really supportive and gets behind the team, I think if they see a team that's not fully on it, then I think some of the fans are beginning to get a bit irked by the levels as well. Like, because I think too many players have dropped off. Before his injury tonight, I think Callum McGregor had dropped off a bit in terms of his level of form. Joe Hart, we've definitely seen.
As I say, the loose touch leads to the first goal. McGregor's loose touch leads to the first goal.
And we need him not to do that. I think Abelgard, I'm now looking at it and thinking, let's get him some game time, because one thing that I liked was having a big body in there. Not long after he came on, there was a ball broke to the edge of the box for Leipzig, and both him and Stephen Welsh flung themselves at it. Too often I see, and it is one of the things that the coach now is, because sliding tackles are punished, even softer ones, they teach players to try and stand on the feet and win the ball that way. But I like us having a big guy that can throw his body in the line in front of the defence, especially in Europe, especially in an away arena. So I don't know if the make-up of the midfield, if Ange needs to maybe have a bit of a think about that, because I think coming with 2 very, very attacking players and Callum McGregor, who's doing a job as a 6, but let's be honest, he's probably more naturally a shuttler, isn't he? So I think when you look at the makeup of the midfield, there's maybe a few things that Ange kind of has to have a think about with that. And I think we do have an option. And the Big Dane, I thought I don't think he was brilliant, but I think he was decent when he came on. And his defensive anticipation, I noted, was really decent.
You can see what his strengths are. You can see what his strengths are. Even in that showing tonight, you can see his strengths. Does look like he reads the game well. He can break it up. Few good challenges in there. Big boy, looks relatively mobile in terms of playing in that deep midfield position. He'll play. You'd like to think he would play on Saturday at St Johnstone. Moy was left behind tonight. He seems like a shoe-in to take over for McGregor. We'll need to assess. The club will need to assess McGregor's injury. Is it serious? How long is he going to be out? Because he's obviously suspended at the weekend, but you don't want to go too long without him in the team.
No. I mean, he's leader, isn't he? So I think that's important. But our other leader, Joe Hart, his levels dropped off as well. So when your two leaders' levels drop, and Cameron Carter-Vickers unavailable, you could argue he's probably one of the other leaders in the team. I think tonight as well, really missed Lyle Abada. I think he would have been an ideal type of threat to try and get inside the full-back on that
Forrest
side.
Comes on, man, and you're like...
Well, see, Angie's changes were quite interesting because he went, it looked to me 4-2-3-1, but with Haksabanovic pushing up to become a second striker. So I thought that was quite interesting that he didn't go for just the standard fling Giakoumakis on, keep the system the same initially. And I know we conceded a third goal after that, but I don't think that was down to the changes. I think that was just the collective malaise and a really devastating counter-attack, you have to say. I liked that Ange was thinking in his feet. I liked that he tried something a bit different with the personnel.
The only thing I would say tonight is he did wait till about 75 minutes before any subs entered the game. So was that a wee bit too late, maybe? Maybe
it was perhaps influenced by the fact that, because obviously the subs to come in 3 goals.
At 2-1.
And, well, no, McGregor going off as well. Like, so he's maybe thinking, I want to keep a couple of tricks up my sleeve, you know? So I wasn't really so bothered about that. I was more bothered, like, I was more interested in the changes that he made. And I thought it was good to see him trying something a bit different, even if it didn't come off. I think what we've got to see is there's so many new faces in this Celtic team that I feel that I don't really know fully yet. We mentioned Abelgard. We've not really seen that much of Haksabanovic either. So is it maybe time, for all that the consistency of selection's been good and for all that making loads of changes against St Mirren didn't work, is it maybe a chance in a couple of kind of positions to try maybe a couple more bodies to make it a more viable squad, if you like, and get a few more of them, that kind of cohesion, that working with their teammates on the pitch, but a match sharpness as well.
Get a better feel for those guys.
Aye.
We obviously go to St Johnstone, big game. The domestic performances, as I say, have had a bit of a dip, but it's imperative that we go there and win on Saturday. But next week, Tuesday at Celtic Park against Leipzig, can we get the win that we need?
Well, I would have felt a bit like before tonight. I would have felt a lot more confident if Cameron Carter-Vickers was available. And I mean, Celtic are being so tight-lipped about that, so it makes me think that I don't know. Like I don't know how much we're going to see him before the World Cup break. Hopefully he does come back. And hopefully he comes back, if not for the Leipzig game, before the Shakhtar game, because I think we absolutely 100% need him for that. But we're a wee bit up against it in this group now, because I think obviously Leipzig are very much kind of done a good performance against us tonight, put in a good display. Shakhtar lucked into playing Tedesco's Leipzig rather than the Marco Rose version, which is better. I think you've seen Leipzig are looking better, and Real Madrid are a really good team, but I don't think they'll by any means like scoosh it in the game where they come here.
The danger next week is that a point's a really good result for Leipzig at Celtic Park.
Yes. Why is that a danger?
It's a danger because they might be happy with a point. If we get a point tonight, they'd have had to come out and try and win the game next week. They don't. They're happy with if they can take a point next week and beat Shakhtar.
So do you think that would play less into our hands if they sat off? Or do you think...
Probably, aye.
Aye.
Because I think you could argue we've been better away from home at times in Europe under Ange than at home.
Yes.
And is that because there's an onus on us because we have more of the ball and we have to maybe break teams down more than we do away from home? We can't have that counter-attacking threat in transition. You could argue that. I just think Leipzig will come out. If Leipzig get a point next week, it's a good result for them. if we had got something here tonight, a draw next week wouldn't have been a good result for Leipzig, so they'd have had to tweak their approach a wee bit. So they can maybe mentally approach the game a wee bit differently than if we'd got something here tonight. I think we have to go and win. If we have any chance of progressing, we have to go and win that game next week.
Oh no, absolutely.
And I think that helps Leipzig in some way.
I can kind of see that. I can kind of see where you're coming from with that. The key thing for me, and no to be belligerent or anything, but it's like I'm thinking about Celtic, and I'm thinking Celtic have to go in that game. It's the first Champions League game at home that you would say is quote unquote winnable, because the Real Madrid game, you're not really expecting anything. Fans will be expecting a win in the 2 remaining home games, and I think if Celtic get that, then I think we probably will progress, and definitely get third at least. But I'm just seeing the way that the defence was tonight. I think it was really exposed, and we could have been 2 goals down in the first 2 minutes. I think that's what you've got to remember. We could have conceded 5 were it not for some very, very close VAR calls. The one that the Nkunku was ruled out was like by millimetres, and then the ref had to go to the screen to check the other one. So I'm just glad Celtic weren't in the end of a thumping tonight, if I'm honest. And I think we've got to kind of take stock for that and say that although we had our chances, we had our moments, and there was times in the game where the momentum could have shifted in our direction. I think we've got to look at that and say, right, that's a bit of a sobering one. Let's look at this, and not so much like the wounds, but like where can we improve and what can we do to try and give ourselves more options. And I think the one big factor tonight that I think stood out for me as before this game, in that video we did with the Bundesliga expert Stuart Telford, he pinpointed the wings as the area where we could get at Leipzig. Jota didn't see enough of the ball tonight, and when he did see it, he didn't do enough with it. And I think what we've got to do is we've got to try and make sure that we feed our creative players, and rather than just seeing where the momentum or the flow of the play takes us, actually instigate it a bit more deliberately by getting our key men, Hatate, O'Reilly, Jota, on the ball. Our key creators need to actually take a bit of ownership and take a bit of that on themselves in these big games. And I think especially at home, they've got to be right at it. They've got to instigate, and we've got to keep the ball better, and we've got to make better decisions. That comes back to the point we were making earlier about the naivety.
Aye, absolutely. I think over the piece tonight, I had an all too familiar typical Celtic away from home in the Champions League feeling, and it was another sobering defeat for Celtic away in this competition. That's it here from Leipzig tonight. We get them at Celtic Park next week, and it's a must-win game if we're to have any hope of progressing from Group F. Like this video, comment with your own thoughts on tonight's game below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. We'll see you on Friday for the build-up to that game at St Johnstone. Cheers.